While the UNSC were always proficient in ground combat with a varied arsenal of vehicles, there was always one aspect of warfare that they seemed to fall short in during the earlier Halo games. The Covenant have always been the masters of the sky, from their immense naval fleets to their extensive types of air vehicles like the Phantom, Spirit, and Banshee. For a while there, it seemed like humanity was completely outclassed, though that was soon about to change.
Hornets inbound!
Hello there guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, my name is LateNightGaming and welcome to episode 2 Electric Boogaloo of Halo Revisited, where today we're going to be looking at the playable UNSC light air vehicles and how they've changed over Halo's extensive 20-year history. And what better place to start than the beginning? Not quite, a little further back? Yeah, that's it. Aside from a few helicopter-like vehicles in pre-release versions of Combat Evolved, Halo 2 was actually meant to be the first Halo game to feature its own playable human air vehicle, though probably not the one you were expecting. The Falcon was supposed to appear in-game and was only really a Falcon in name. Vengeful Vadim has done a tremendous job in restoring cut encounters, enemy types, and now vehicles in Halo 2, and one that he discovered was a brief moment with a Falcon during the mission Outskirts, where Sergeant Jodson, instead of leaving in a Pelican before letting Chief make his way through literal sniper jackal hell, gets picked up by a Falcon before the Hunter encounter early in the level. The Falcon seems to share very little in terms of common traits to its Reach version. To say the design is different would be an understatement. It doesn't have the helicopter-like interior cabin for passengers or gunners, instead allowing Marines to sit outside the vehicle on the wings. That just... Listen, I'm not normally afraid of heights, but that does bad things to my mental state. There's also an interior cockpit that can hold 2 people, a pilot that controls movement and another who can operate the weapons on the Falcon, which consists of a chin-mounted machine gun and a barrage of rockets. Not much else is really known about this vehicle as it was cut very early on in development and it's completely untextured, but modders like Vadim and Lord Zed and others have done a lot of work to try and restore it. And it's interesting to wonder how different the future of the UNSC's air vehicles might have been if this had made it into the finished version of Halo 2. The first proper inclusion of a UNSC air vehicle was the AV-14 Attack VTOL, or as it's more commonly referred to as the Hornet. In the lore, the Hornet is a more recent development in the UNSC arsenal, made by Mizraia Armory, the same manufacturer as the assault rifle, so you can bet your ass it's going to be reliable. The Hornet is easily one of the most integral aircraft in the UNSC's arsenal, being fast and nimble enough to carry out reconnaissance while having sufficient armor and weapons to hold its own in dogfights with Covenant air units like the Banshee. The Hornet follows the UNSC design philosophy of sharp, aggressive angles with railings and handlebars for the exterior passengers to hold onto for dear life. God, again, I don't have a fear of heights, but it's honestly no wonder humanity almost lost the war with the Covenant when this is how they treat passengers in their vehicles.
You all right, Marine?
The Hornet achieves its propulsion from 2 advanced turbofan engines that adjust in accordance to the pilot's movements. The Hornet's cockpit is pretty small, only having room for 1 pilot who also operates the Hornet's weapons. Speaking of weapons, the Hornet has 2 triple-barreled twin-linked rotary cannons which, instead of shooting simultaneously, follow one after the other, presumably so the guns don't overheat. Alongside those are 2 Class 2 guided munition systems that will track onto nearby enemy vehicles with a bit of coaxing from your crosshair. If a vehicle falls into red reticle range, those guided missiles will do a solid job of tracking it, even if it's strangely missing any kind of confirmation of a lock-on. There's no sound or visual indicator to let you know if your missiles have locked on, so you better just cross your fingers and pray to the Mizraia gods that they work. The missiles have similar characteristics and damage stats to the missile pod, yeah, anyone remember that thing? And replenish after about 2.5 seconds. Below the cockpit is a small series of cameras and sensors that aid in target designation. The Hornet in Halo 3 is first seen during the mission The Storm, getting caught up in dogfights around the portal to the Ark, and isn't playable till The Covenant, Halo 3's third to last mission, with not 1, but 2 playable Hornet sections. The Hornet really shows its combat prowess in these encounters, easily dodging anti-air wraithfire while dealing with dozens of Banshees and even Phantoms with relative ease. And if that wasn't enough to prove its capabilities, the Hornet then gets offered to the player to help deal with 2 Scarabs. In multiplayer, the Hornet isn't really seen at all, probably because of how ridiculously OP it is, with the Banshee being the primary air vehicle on most big team battle maps. The only map it appears on is Avalanche, but even then, the Hornet has been significantly nerfed, with the twin missile launchers removed. While it's an awesome little vehicle, the Hornet is maybe a little too awesome. And moving forward, Bungie decided to try something different with their next and final main Halo title. Halo Reach sets us back to an era before combat evolved, on a planet that we hadn't ventured to and was supposed to be the UNSC's most militarized. This gave Bungie a little more creative freedom to try something different and return to an idea that didn't make it into one of their previous games. Marcus Leto, Bungie's art director and creative lead for Reach, had been messing around with the idea of a playable UNSC vehicle since combat evolved. His designs eventually developed into the UH-144 Falcon, which is kind of like the Warthog, if it could fly. Taking a few design cues from the Hornet like the twin propellers and small narrow cockpit, the Falcon fits right at home among the UNSC's array of vehicles and is undoubtedly a fan favourite. The Falcon was first put into service in the late 25th century, being seen as a good alternative to the heavier and thus more expensive Pelican dropship, with widespread use among the outer colonies. Its tech is a little older than that of the Hornet, which makes sense seeing as it was developed many years beforehand, having more conventional rotors and an engine pod on each wing, with additional propulsion coming from the 2 dorsal routed jet engines that help provide thrust during forward flight, and while it is bigger and not quite as maneuverable as the Hornet, it more than makes up for this by having, an actual decent place to put its passengers. Rather than going for the VTOL design that the Hornet has, the Falcon is technically a helicopter, with a more accommodating design for passengers that doesn't leave them feeling like they could fall off at any minute, with 2 turrets on either side of the interior cabin. The UH-144H, which is the most widespread variant of the Falcon, utilizes the M247H heavy machine gun, while the 144S has a slightly less common MG460 automatic grenade launcher for dealing with heavily armored targets. In the campaign specifically, there's a version of the Falcon with a chin-mounted M638 autocannon that fires a 20mm round in a burst of 5 shots. The Falcon is seen frequently throughout Reach's campaign and has a presence in just about every mission of the game, but isn't playable till the level New Alexandria. It's also surprisingly a UNSC air vehicle that's seen kind of regularly in multiplayer. Halo Reach's currently exclusive game mode Invasion, I say currently because goddamn I'm on the hopium that it gets added to Infinite someday soon, features the Falcon on maps like the Spire and Breakpoint. A few variants of maps like Highlands have it in the Big Team Heavies game mode, and there's a few inclusions on Forge-made Big Team battle maps within the official map rotation. Unlike the Hornet, where you can just go ham on your own, the Falcon is only really useful if you have 2 gunners who know what they're doing. And because of the Reach sandbox's apparent hatred of vehicles with weapons like the Spartan laser, plasma launcher, homing rocket launcher, and the sniper, which does crazy damage to vehicles, it's not a lot of people's preferred choice. It's more of a novelty than anything else. While it has been used for some really fun custom games and it feels badass to sit in this thing as a gunner or passenger, its practicality isn't great, though despite all of that, I love the Falcon. It's the perfect encapsulation of Bungie's rule of cool, and I seriously hope we see it return one day. And not just in Mega Bloks sets, for God's sakes. Halo 4 has a complicated history with UNSC air vehicles. Aside from a few playable sections in the campaign with a Pelican, the biggest cock tease in gaming history, and the Falcons being seen in earlier builds of the game and obviously cut once the full game rolled around, Halo 4's only playable air vehicle in multiplayer was the Banshee. Again. Though, funnily enough, there was hope. Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer features the Hornet, which is odd, seeing as the Hornet didn't appear till Halo 3, and originally we were supposed to get the Falcon in Halo 2. It doesn't make a lot of sense for it to be here, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. The Hornet in H2A's multiplayer functions almost the same as Halo 3's. The twin-linked rotary cannons that borrow the same sound effect as the turret on the Pelican from Halo 4, and the 2 guided missile launchers are back with a fancy new crosshair too that shows the time between missile uses. The design closely resembles Halo 3's, with a darker, more matte green color, with some additional bits of detailing and higher resolution textures that naturally come from the game being on a newer generation of console. The lenses and other sensors towards the chin of the aircraft have been changed, with there being just one large target designator instead. Once again, passengers can sit on the outside of the aircraft, not that you'd want to, and it's only featured on the map Bloodline, in place of what was initially the Banshee in Halo 2's original version of the map. There's really not much to say about this version of the Hornet other than just how odd it is to have it in this game, but I mean, it's good that it's there. To me, it feels like this was done as an apology for not having a UNSC air vehicle in Halo 4's multiplayer, and moving forward, it seemed like 343 were eager to correct this error. Halo 5 Guardians saw the inclusion of a brand new UNSC air vehicle, one that shared many similarities to the Hornet in its performance and role in the vehicular sandbox. The AV-49 Wasp is a light, more stripped-back version of a VTOL design like the Hornet, with exceptional maneuverability prioritizing speed over armor while not compromising too much on firepower. Developed in 2553, the Wasp didn't see any action during the Human Covenant War, with it only really being used in field trials up until 2558. It also has a rather unique characteristic for a UNSC vehicle that is only shared by the Mantis, of having an energy shield like those in the Spartan Mjolnir armor platform, albeit on a much larger scale. The Wasp's design... The Wasp's design... God, that's hard to say. The Wasp's design. The Wasp's design is rather contentious within the Halo community. Like a lot of Halo 5's designs, it goes for a sleeker look and a flat kind of profile, reminiscent of a lot of current-day aircraft, while still holding on to the twin turbofan engines that keep it within the same family of Mizraia Armory's attack VTOL. Its armament consists of twin 7.62 directional turrets that overheat stupidly fast, two 50mm missile launchers that take 2 seconds to recharge and can only track other airborne units. Due to its smaller size compared to the Hornet, it's a much harder target to hit and a big annoyance when in the hands of a talented pilot. As it was introduced post-launch in the Warzone Firefight update, the Wasp doesn't appear in Halo 5's campaign at all, but sees pretty solid usage in the game's multiplayer, appearing in a few BTB Forge maps, but especially in the Warzone game mode, where ideally it's used for quick hit and runs, killing a few players, then backing off before they can do too much damage to you. Despite the Wasp's energy shields, its base health is pretty shit. There are a further 2 different versions of the Wasp in Halo 5, the Oni variant, once again using that very nice black and red color scheme that Oni seem to be known for, and includes a few added bonuses like improved armor, Oni HEPD machine gun turrets that shoot explosive rounds, and missiles that track all vehicles, not just airborne ones. You've also got the Hannibal Wasp, which is faster than both the standard and Oni Wasp, and has ion bombs that work kind of similarly to the Plasma Caster's projectiles, and after they take a few minutes to warm up, Gauss repeaters that fire a quick burst but heap on a lot of damage. The Wasp is a very competent air vehicle and a damn nuisance in the skies when it's in the right hands, but it's kind of... I don't know how best to put it, but boring? I'm not the biggest fan of one-man army type vehicles in Halo. I like the teamwork aspect, like the Warthog requiring a driver and a gunner for it to be useful, or the Falcon which requires gunners on either side. The Wasp is just a bit dull, and doesn't quite work for me in the pantheon of Halo's vehicles. Despite Halo Infinite's commitment to a more Bungie-esque design language for the game, leading away from the more generic, overly detailed sci-fi look that 343 were going for, the Wasp is, well, it's back, and looks the exact same as it did in Halo 5, bar a few very minor cosmetic changes. Functionally, it's also very similar to Halo 5. It's got the same maneuverability and weapons, albeit the turrets now don't overheat, and the missiles can lock onto any vehicle, so that's a nice quality of life improvement, I guess. There's really not much else I can say about the Wasp in this game that I didn't already say about it in Halo 5. It's missing the energy shield and seems to have slightly improved health compared to Halo 5, and while Infinite might be missing the infamous Spartan laser, there are still plenty of ways to counter the Wasp. The shock rifle and other shock-based weapons like the repulsor and dynamo grenades can temporarily EMP the Wasp, but not the plasma pistol for some reason.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
The Hydra does a decent job of swatting them out of the sky, the Sniper does too, and the Skewer, well, when it lands it does. And it's frequently the bane of most people's existence on the map High Power. It bothers me that people play the map like this, just normally. Like, I've been waiting here for 2 minutes for this Wasp to respawn. I've been doing it for good reason, though. I'm doing it for a video. What are these guys behind me doing it for, you know? Like, Aussie Duffman over here, he's been here for ages. Like, oh my...
You know how much I sacrificed?
It's one of the last vehicles you can unlock in Infinite's campaign from FOBs by completing missions and earning valor, and it's easily one of the quickest ways to traverse the landscape of Zeta Halo. With the Banshee's dominance of the skies for the first 2 Halo games, it only seemed natural for Bungie to turn their attention towards making a human equivalent. And boy, am I glad they did. While the history of the UNSC's air vehicles is rocky at best with lots of variation, ups and downs, vehicles like the Hornet, the Falcon, and even the Wasp have offered themselves up as the perfect vessels for some players' best moments in these games. They're a treasured part of Halo's sandbox, and any game that releases without them feels noticeably empty. And in a series with as much variety in its battles as Halo, the skies should never be empty.
Lord, I didn't train to be a pilot. Tell me I don't have any more flying to do today.